For nearly a century, the prevailing theory was that Europe's first advanced society had to be a colony. Early excavators believed this level of sophistication was an import from North Africa or the Nile Delta. That theory collapsed in 2013 when researchers sequenced mitochondrial DNA extracted from ancient bone fragments found in the Lassithi Plateau caves. The data showed the population was entirely European, descended from Neolithic farmers who had migrated from Anatolia to Crete roughly 9,000 years ago. This creates a striking historical contradiction. An egalitarian, female-centric society with no massive military monuments successfully dominated the brutal and highly competitive Bronze Age world. Their Golden Age grew entirely from within. Protected by the sea, they developed a unique culture indigenous to the island of Crete. To manage their environment, they built sprawling multi-story complexes. Sites like Knossos, Phaistos, and Mallia featured advanced stone architecture, including these distinctive red columns that taper toward the base. Beneath these floors lay an advanced urban infrastructure. They engineered subterranean plumbing, complex drainage systems, and indoor flushing toilets thousands of years before the Roman era. They also engineered their buildings to survive the active fault lines of the Aegean. Builders packed rubble between solid masonry and used flexible wooden pier and door partitions to absorb the shock of frequent earthquakes. The internal layouts were intentionally complex, with corridors taking circuitous routes that eventually gave rise to the myth of the labyrinth. Every winding path converged on massive, open-air rectangular courtyards, such as this expansive stone plaza at Phaistos. Modern archaeological analysis suggests these sites functioned as centralized economic engines designed to store and redistribute the island's agricultural wealth of grain, olive oil, and wine. But Crete suffered a fatal geographic flaw. The island lacked the copper and tin required to forge the tools and weapons that defined the Bronze Age. To acquire those metals, they built a thalassocracy, a sea empire based on naval dominance and trade rather than territorial conquest. Surviving frescoes document their maritime reach, depicting large, multi-oared ships equipped with sails, capable of open ocean navigation alongside leaping dolphins. Their trade routes spanned the eastern Mediterranean. They exported high-value finished goods, like textiles and decorated pottery, in exchange for raw copper from Cyprus and tin from the Levantine coast. This wealth secured their status in foreign courts. In Egypt, we see these islanders depicted as high-status envoys, carrying heavy, ornate gold vessels as diplomatic tribute. Recent data shows their reach was even more extensive. Stone weight measurements found on Crete identically match those used in the Indus River Valley, proving a direct logistical connection stretching all the way across the Near East to modern-day Pakistan. Their lack of domestic resources forced them to become the connected logistical superpower of the Bronze Age. This reliance on the natural world defined their spiritual lives. Their religion was an ecstatic experience tied directly to the forces of the earth and sea. Many of their rituals were chthonic, conducted in the pitch-black depths of the island's caves. There, worshippers left bronze double axes and clay vessels in rock crevices as offerings to deities of the earth. They balanced these dark cave rituals with high-altitude peak sanctuaries. Citizens made communal pilgrimages to summits like Mount Juktas to observe celestial cycles and leave offerings under the open sky. These spiritual practices were intensely physically demanding. Stone carvings show local farmers in rhythmic, vocal processions, carrying their harvesting tools as part of a collective ritual. The sacred lived in the landscape itself. Every feature of the island, from the deepest cave to the highest mountain peak, served as a participant in their survival. Women held the ultimate spiritual authority in this hierarchy, serving as high priestesses and dominating nearly all ritual art. This authority is centered on a commanding deity often found in domestic shrines. She stands in a powerful stance, with bared breasts, gripping live serpents in her hands as a symbol of feminine spiritual power. That ritual authority extended to the massive palace courtyards, which served as the stage for their most famous and dangerous public spectacle. This was the bull-leaping ritual. It required intense physical precision and spiritual devotion. As young acrobats, both men and women, vaulted directly over the horns of massive charging bulls. The islanders built Europe's first golden age, not through warfare, but through advanced engineering, global trade, and a lived reverence for the natural world. Around 1600 BCE, the Minoans controlled the Aegean Sea. From their harbors on Crete, their fleets dominated maritime trade, moving goods across the Mediterranean. Then, the nearby volcano of Thera detonated. As one of the largest eruptions in human history, it ejected billions of tons of rock and ash. This map shows Bronze Age Thera. Notice Akrotiri sitting close to the volcanic center. As the volcano expelled magma, the empty chamber beneath could no longer support the island's weight. The center collapsed inward, leaving a massive void known as the Cape Riva caldera. The immediate fallout entombed Akrotiri under meters of pumice and ash. Entire streets and buildings were preserved exactly as they stood when the inhabitants fled. When the caldera collapsed, ocean water rushed in to fill the basin. This violent displacement generated huge tsunamis, with waves up to 63 meters high. Those waves radiated outward and hit the northern coast of Crete, slamming into major Minoan trade hubs. In a matter of days, the Minoan naval fleet was splintered, and their agricultural lands were choked with seawater and toxic ash. The Mediterranean's dominant maritime power was paralyzed. This sudden environmental devastation created a massive power vacuum across the Aegean. Sensing the vulnerability of their crippled rivals, mainland Mycenaean Greeks crossed the sea. Around 1450 BCE, they launched a military invasion of Crete. The archaeological record documents this occupation physically. Graves on Crete from this period suddenly contain mainland-style weaponry, like bronze swords, signaling the arrival of a new warrior elite. The sprawling maritime trade networks the Minoans had built over centuries were redrawn. Ships and resources were aggressively redirected to serve Mycenae on the mainland. The people of Crete survived the eruption and the tsunamis, but their existence as an independent, autonomous civilization was permanently ended by the invasion. This cultural shift was recorded in a change in administrative writing. For hundreds of years, the Minoans used a writing system known today as Linear A. It was uniquely their own, and to this day, linguists have never been able to translate it. Following the invasion, the clay tablets used for accounting and administration at Knossos abruptly switched to a highly structured new script called Linear B. This table compares characters from both systems. While they share many symbols, the two scripts record entirely different languages. The meaning of these records remained elusive until 1952, when Michael Ventris used statistical grids and geographical clues to identify the language behind the script. Ventris proved that Linear B was not a native Minoan language at all. It was an early syllabic form of Mycenaean Greek. By losing their language, the Minoans lost control of their own history. Their administrative records and their identity were now completely dictated by the people who conquered them. Because the true records of the Minoans were lost to time, their history survived only as fragments in the oral traditions of the Greeks, mutating over the centuries into myth. The actual complex, multi-level floor plans of the Minoan palaces, with their confusing corridors and blind alleys, likely inspired the Greek legend of King Minos, the Minotaur, and Daedalus's inescapable labyrinth. The geological catastrophe of Thera has also been linked to the legend of Atlantis, suggesting that the memory of an island swallowed by the sea was preserved in oral tradition.